There comes a moment in every soul's journey when you must learn the difficult art of stepping back, not because you are weak, not because you have stopped caring, but because you have finally understood that your peace cannot be placed in the pockets of people who were never meant to hold it. Life will place you in rooms where you give more than you ever receive, where you bleed compassion until your own spirit trembles, where you patch broken souls with hands that are bruised from your own mending. And somewhere in that long, tender labor of loving others, you realize that not everyone is meant to go with you. Not every problem is yours to solve, and not every situation deserves the sacrifice of your joy. Detachment is not the closing of the heart. It is the opening of the eyes. It is a soft whisper from life itself, telling you that control is an illusion we cling to when we are afraid of losing what we should never have been holding on to in the first place. When you try to direct the tides, you drown. When you try to carry people who refuse to walk, you collapse. When you try to heal what enjoys its own hurting, you break. But when you learn to let life unfold without gripping so tightly, you rise. There were times I believed that love alone could save anyone. I believed that if I showed up with enough loyalty, if I offered enough patience, if I spoke with enough gentleness, if I forgave beyond measure, then surely the world would reward me with harmony. But people are their own storms, and storms do not settle just because you stand bravely in the rain. Some people must learn their lessons through the bruises of their own choices. And some problems, no matter how noble your intentions, are none of your business to fix. Letting go is an act of faith. Faith in the universe, faith in timing, faith in the resilience of your own heartbeat, faith that peace is your birthright, not a trophy you must earn by fighting unnecessary battles. There is a certain boldness in walking away, not the boldness of anger, but the boldness of wisdom. Wisdom says, I cannot pour into someone whose hands are closed. Wisdom says, I cannot argue with someone whose heart is locked. Wisdom says, I will not destroy myself trying to control the uncontrollable. And oh, how many of us have tried anyway? We bargain with life. We beg for clarity. We hold on to sinking ships because we are too loyal to abandon them, even as the water rises to our chins. We convince ourselves that endurance is virtue, even when endurance is dragging us to our knees. But the truth is you cannot save anyone who enjoys drowning. You cannot fix someone who thrives in chaos. You cannot force peace on a situation that feeds on conflict. And you cannot force yourself into someone's life when their soul has already closed the door. Detachment is a love letter to yourself. It is the quiet declaration that you deserve gentleness, that you are worthy of a life that does not constantly tear you in two. When you detach from what you cannot control, you finally make room for what you can: your spirit, your growth, your healing, your energy, your purpose, your joy. You stop trying to rewrite the story of someone who never intended to change. You stop waiting for apologies that were never coming. You stop revisiting conversations that already drained you. And you stop giving discounts to people who have never paid full price for your compassion. Some people will call you cold for choosing yourself. They will call you selfish, distant, or ungrateful. But those who call you selfish for setting boundaries are the ones who benefited from your lack of them. And life will teach you again and again that protecting your peace is not a sin. It is an obligation. I have met people who carry storms in their pockets and expect you to walk with them through every thunder. They give you their wounds and expect you to bleed with them. They hand you their fears and expect you to bear them. They offer you chaos and expect you to smile through it. But understand this truth: it is not cruelty to refuse to drown with someone. It is self-preservation. You were not born to be the life raft for those who refuse to swim. There will be days you catch yourself holding on to people who have already walked away from you in their hearts. There will be nights when your spirit aches from the weight of everyone who leaned on you, but never offered a shoulder in return. But pain is a teacher, and one of its greatest lessons is this: when you cling to what is trying to leave, you keep your hands too full to receive what is coming. The universe cannot deliver blessings to fists that are closed around burdens. I have learned that we cling not because we love too much, but because we fear the emptiness that waits on the other side of letting go. We fear silence. We fear loneliness. We fear the unknown. We fear starting again. But let me tell you something, emptiness is not your enemy. Emptiness is space, and space is where new life begins. When you detach, you are not walking away from love. You are walking toward clarity. You are walking toward freedom. You are walking toward the version of yourself who is no longer willing to sacrifice her soul for someone else's comfort. You are walking toward mornings that do not feel heavy. You are walking toward nights where your thoughts no longer pace the corridors of worry. You are walking toward a life where your heart breathes easier. And do not think that detachment means indifference. It means understanding that you can love someone and still recognize that their path is not yours to carry. You can wish someone well and still refuse to participate in their chaos. You can forgive someone and still shut the door behind them. Detachment is not a hard heart, it is a wise one. Every time you try to control someone's behavior, you lose control of your own peace. Every time you try to solve a problem that does not belong to you, you rob yourself of the energy needed for your own life. Every time you argue with someone who has no intention of listening, you waste your breath on a wall that never had ears. Let the walls stand. Let the storms pass. Let the people who choose confusion walk their own path. It takes courage to release what you once begged the universe to let you keep. But release is not failure. Release is maturity. Release is accepting that the season has ended, that the chapter is closed, that the lesson has been learned. And life will always reward you for letting go of what is misaligned. When you detach from the wrong things, the right things find you. When you detach from the wrong people, the right ones recognize you. When you detach from the wrong situations, the universe clears the path for miracles you could not have imagined. And I know there is a part of you that fears letting go will make you empty, but understand this, you are not losing anything meant for you. What is yours will not require begging. What is yours will not drain you. What is yours will not threaten your peace. What is yours will grow with you, not against you. I have seen people spend years trying to change others, trying to force understanding where there is none, trying to carve a space for themselves in hearts that do not know how to hold them. But life has a softer way, a wiser way, a gentler way. Life says, release what resists you. Embrace what welcomes you. Walk toward what aligns with your spirit. Letting go is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the chapter where you finally honor yourself. A time will come when you no longer chase explanations. You no longer justify your worth. You no longer negotiate your value. You no longer shrink to fit into small places. You no longer dim your light so someone else can feel brighter. You no longer attach your joy to the hands of anyone who has a history of dropping it. You rise, you breathe, you return to yourself. And when you return to yourself, you discover that detachment is not loneliness, it is liberation. It is the freedom of knowing that your heart is no longer held hostage by what you cannot control. It is the quiet joy of understanding that peace is not found in managing the world, but in mastering your own response to it. You grow into the kind of strength that does not need applause. You grow into the kind of wisdom that does not argue. You grow into the kind of love that does not beg. You grow into the kind of calm that does not break at every storm. And you grow into the kind of clarity that recognizes when something no longer belongs in your life. Life will always ask you to choose hold tightly and suffer, or let go and breathe. Choose yourself, choose your peace. Choose the quiet dignity of walking away when something no longer nourishes your soul. Choose the courage to step back, even when your heart wants to stay. Choose the strength to release what was never meant for your hands. Choose the freedom of knowing that you cannot control people, but you can control the direction of your own spirit. And when you finally master this lesson, you will feel something miraculous. You will feel the weight fall from your shoulders. You will feel your mind unclench. You will feel your heart steady. You will feel your breath deepen. And you will realize, perhaps for the first time, that peace was never far away. It was only waiting for you to stop chasing everything else. Detachment is the art of remembering who you are, even when the world tries to pull you in every direction. It is the discipline of choosing your sanity over your longing. It is the grace of loving from a distance. It is the mastery of walking away without bitterness. It is the wisdom of trusting that what is meant for you will not be lost by your release, and what is not meant for you cannot be kept by your effort. And one day, when peace becomes your home, you will look back at every moment you tried to hold on, every tear shed for what would not change, every sleepless night spent worrying over things outside your control, and you will smile. You will smile because you survived. You will smile because you learned. You will smile because you are finally free. Freedom comes when you accept that you cannot carry someone who refuses to stand. There is a quiet truth tucked inside these words, a truth many people spend years avoiding, resisting, or desperately trying to rewrite. We want to believe that love, patience, sacrifice, and endless compassion can lift anyone, heal anyone, save anyone. And while love is powerful, it is not meant to be a burden you drag behind you until your own back bends and your spirit breaks. Some people do not wish to rise, not because they are incapable, but because remaining on the ground allows them to avoid responsibility, effort, and accountability. They grow comfortable in their own stillness, even if that stillness is the root of their suffering. They grow accustomed to leaning on you, even when leaning becomes dependency. And slowly you begin to confuse carrying someone with caring for them, and their weight becomes disguised as your obligation. There is a kind of exhaustion that comes from giving more energy than a relationship deserves. It is the heaviness that creeps into your chest when you realize you have spent days, months, or even years holding someone together while they make no attempt to hold themselves. You become their strength, their motivation, their hope, and their anchor. But in doing so, you forget that your own strength was meant for your growth, your journey, your evolution. You were not created to be the backbone of someone who refuses to lift even the smallest part of their own life. You were not designed to sacrifice your peace for someone who isn't even willing to take a single step toward their own healing. Carrying someone who refuses to stand drains you slowly. It erodes your joy in small, unnoticeable ways. It steals your mornings when you wake up already tired from the emotional weight you carried the night before. It steals your evenings when your thoughts revolve around someone else's choices, mistakes, fears, and chaos. It steals your sleep when your heart beats with anxiety that does not even belong to you. And the tragedy is that the person you are carrying often does not even realize the cost you are paying. They mistake your support for something permanent. They believe your presence in their burdens is a promise. They grow blind to the sacrifices you make because they never had to make the same ones. But freedom whispers to you in moments of stillness. It tells you that your hands were never meant to be shackles. It tells you that love does not always mean lifting someone. Sometimes it means stepping aside so they can learn to lift themselves. It tells you that your journey cannot continue if you are carrying someone who has made a home in their own helplessness. And that whisper grows louder each time you find yourself sinking under a weight you did not create. When people refuse to stand, it is not always because they are incapable. Sometimes it is because standing requires change, effort, and self-reflection. It requires admitting their own part in the chaos. It requires confronting their fears. And some people would rather stay in the comfort of being carried than face the discomfort of growth. But growth never happens in stillness. Healing never happens in avoidance. Strength is never built when someone else is doing the lifting for you. There is a difference between supporting someone and enabling their stagnation. Support empowers them to rise. Enabling allows them to sink deeper. Support is love. Enabling is self-destruction dressed as kindness. And you must learn to recognize the difference before you lose yourself in someone else's inability to move forward. You may think that letting go means failing them. You may fear that stepping back means abandoning them. But the truth is that real transformation often comes when someone is no longer able to rely on your strength. When they feel the absence of your constant support, they must confront their own reality. They must face the consequences of remaining down. They must learn to stand because there is no longer anyone left to carry them. And sometimes that moment becomes the turning point of their life. But staying, carrying, rescuing, they all delay that transformation. Every time you lift someone who refuses to lift themselves, you teach them that effort is unnecessary. You teach them that their choices have no consequences. You teach them that their inaction will always be cushioned by your sacrifice. And that is not love, it is imprisonment for both of you. Freedom begins with acceptance. Acceptance that you are not responsible for another person's willingness to grow. Acceptance that your love cannot substitute for their effort. Acceptance that you cannot want change more than they do. Acceptance that their healing is their journey, not your mission. And acceptance that the weight you carry is slowly dimming your spirit. You must look at your hands and see how tired they are. You must look at your heart and acknowledge how heavy it feels. You must look at your life and realize how many dreams, joys, and moments you have postponed because you were too busy carrying someone else. And then, you must decide that you deserve to walk freely. You deserve to breathe easily. You deserve to live a life that is not burdened by someone else's refusal to rise. Letting go of the weight is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is remembering that your journey matters. Your soul matters. Your peace matters. And the moment you release the weight that was never yours to carry, you will feel something awaken inside you. You will feel your steps become lighter. You will feel your mind open to new possibilities. You will feel your spirit stretching in ways it hasn't in a long time. You will feel the freedom that was waiting for you all along. And perhaps the most surprising part is this: once you put the weight down, you realize how strong you were all along. But strength does not mean carrying others until you collapse. It means knowing when to set them down and continue walking toward your own life. Peace finds you the moment you stop trying to control what was never yours. There is a deep, quiet liberation hidden inside this truth, a liberation many people spend their lives searching for without realizing that the very chase is what keeps peace out of reach. So much of human suffering comes from holding on too tightly to people who have chosen their own direction, too tightly to problems that were never ours to solve, too tightly to stories that ended long before we accepted their final page. We grip situations with trembling hands, convinced that if we hold hard enough or long enough, we can bend life to our desires. But life has its own rhythm, its own flow, its own divine timing, and none of it moves at the command of human fear. Peace walks toward the one who understands that control is nothing more than the illusion we cling to when we are terrified of surrender. There is a restlessness that takes root in the soul when you try to control the uncontrollable. You feel it in the pit of your stomach when someone drifts away from you, and you try to pull them closer with explanations, arguments, or emotional pleas. You feel it when outcomes slip through your fingers no matter how many plans you make. You feel it when someone refuses to change, yet you carry the weight of their choices as if it were your responsibility. And you feel it most intensely when your heart insists on rewriting the story, even though reality has already spoken. That restlessness is not punishment, it is a signal. A quiet whisper urging you to loosen your grip, to exhale, to trust life more than your fear. Trying to control everything is often rooted in fear, fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of uncertainty, fear of being unprepared. But fear is a poor architect for the soul. It builds homes with shaky walls and windows that never open. When fear shapes your actions, you become a prisoner of outcomes you cannot determine. You begin measuring your worth by what stays, who stays, or what unfolds the way you wanted. And in that process, peace becomes a distant dream, something that feels available to everyone except you. But peace has never been far. Peace sits quietly at the doorway of your heart, waiting for you to stop fighting battles that were never yours. Waiting for you to stop rewriting the endings that life has already written. Waiting for you to unclench your fists and finally let the river of fate flow without your resistance. It does not demand perfection. It simply asks for surrender. The moment you release the attempt to control people, outcomes, and situations that were never in your hands, peace moves in like a soft dawn breaking after a long night. People are often the hardest to release. We believe that if we try hard enough, love deeply enough, or bend ourselves far enough, we can make someone stay, listen, change, or understand. But people have their own minds, their own wounds, their own destinies. You cannot force someone to value what they do not recognize. You cannot make someone love in a way they have never learned. You cannot make someone see you if their eyes are focused inward. The harder you try to control their choices, the more you lose yourself. Peace comes when you accept that their journey is not yours to manage and your happiness is not theirs to dictate. Relationships teach you this lesson with sharp clarity. You may pour your heart into someone who keeps their distance. You may offer loyalty to someone who gives uncertainty in return. You may invest effort in someone who invests only excuses. In such moments, you begin to believe that trying harder is the answer. But peace will tap your shoulder gently, telling you that love cannot grow in the soil of force. It grows only in freedom. And freedom includes the freedom to walk away, the freedom to choose differently, the freedom to be yourself without bending to fit someone else's unwillingness. Accepting this truth allows peace to settle into your life like a warm blanket. Circumstances also test your need for control. Life unfolds with storms and seasons you never asked for. Plans change, opportunities shift, outcomes surprise you. Yet you try to control every twist, believing that certainty will keep you safe. But certainty is a prison disguised as security. It keeps you gripping the familiar even when the familiar hurts. It keeps you stuck in fear of the unknown, even though the unknown might hold the very blessings you prayed for. Peace comes when you realize that uncertainty is not the enemy. It is the space where possibility lives, where growth begins, where transformation is born. There is deep wisdom in trusting the natural flow of life. It does not mean giving up. It does not mean accepting defeat. It simply means understanding that everything has its time, its purpose, its path. You stop forcing doors that remain closed. You stop chasing explanations that drain you. You stop arguing with life as if life will rewrite its script just to soothe your disappointment. Instead, you lean into trust that what is meant for you cannot be taken, and what is not meant for you cannot be kept. Peace becomes easier when you recognize what is yours. Your thoughts, your reactions, your choices, your healing, your inner state, these are yours to shape. But the behavior, feelings, decisions, and destinies of others are not. Problems that arise from someone else's patterns are not yours to fix. Situations that drag you into chaos created by others are not yours to manage. When you stop absorbing what does not belong to you, you reclaim energy that was lost for years. You reclaim your breath, your clarity, your strength. And slowly, peace becomes not something you chase, but something you attract. It comes when your heart stops wrestling with reality. It comes when you stop rewriting the past with what ifs and if onlys. It comes when you stop trying to force healing on people who choose hurt. It comes when you trust timing instead of fighting it. It comes when you learn that letting go is not losing. It is allowing room for something better. Peace is not loud. It does not arrive with fanfare or applause. It arrives softly like a warm morning sunlight that you suddenly realize is touching your face. It shows itself in the way your shoulders finally relax, in the way your breaths deepen, in the way your mind stops battling everything it cannot control. It arrives when you look at life and say, I release what is not mine, and you mean it with every part of your being. And in that moment of release, something in you shifts, something in you opens, something in you returns home to itself. And that something is peace, the peace that was waiting for you from the very beginning. Letting go is an act of self-love disguised as surrender. It feels, at first, like laying down your weapons in the middle of a battlefield you have fought on for far too long. It feels like stepping back from a doorway you've knocked on until your hands bruised from insistence. It feels like taking one final breath after months or years of holding air in your lungs, afraid that exhaling would mean accepting the truth you never wanted to face. And though it appears like surrender, though it carries the quiet ache of release, what you are really doing is choosing yourself in a world that taught you to choose everything and everyone else first. Letting go does not come easily. It is one of the most difficult acts a human heart can attempt because the heart is built to hold on. It holds memories long after the moment has passed. It holds love long after the relationship has faded. It holds hopes long after reality has dismantled them. The heart clings not because it is foolish, but because it is loyal. It clings because it remembers joy even when the present is full of hurt. It clings because it was taught that perseverance is virtue, even when perseverance becomes pain. It clings because letting go feels like failure, even when staying is what's breaking you. There is a peculiar kind of strength in releasing what you once prayed would stay. It is the strength of someone who has walked through fire and realized that survival sometimes means stepping away from the flames. It is the strength of someone who finally recognizes that carrying the weight of what has already collapsed will not rebuild it. It is the strength of someone who chooses healing over history, and that choice is never made lightly. It is born from nights when sleep refuses to come, from days when silence is louder than any spoken truth, from moments when your reflection begs you to stop fighting battles your soul no longer wishes to fight. Letting go begins quietly. It does not announce itself with drama or grand gestures. It begins in the small shifts, the way your voice softens when speaking about what once fueled your fire, the way your heart no longer rushes forward when their name is mentioned, the way your spirit grows tired of carrying conversations, conflicts, or connections that no longer nourish you. It begins when exhaustion finally outweighs hope, when clarity finally outweighs longing, when acceptance finally outweighs the illusion you tried to protect. And this acceptance is not sudden. It arrives slowly, like dawn creeping across a dark horizon. You resist it at first. You argue with it. You deny it. You bargain with the universe, trying to rewrite a story that has already closed its last chapter. You revisit memories, searching for signs you missed. You replay conversations, trying to find the moment where things could have gone differently. You hold on to promises that were broken long before you admitted they were empty. But acceptance waits patiently. It knows you need time. It knows the heart must grieve what the mind already understands. It knows that letting go is not a switch you flip but a journey you walk. One day, though, something shifts. Maybe it's a sentence spoken carelessly. Maybe it's a realization that hits you in the middle of an ordinary moment. Maybe it's the weight of carrying someone who has long stopped walking beside you. Maybe it's the quiet understanding that what you're holding on to is no longer alive, yet you're still trying to breathe life into it. Whatever the moment looks like, it feels like standing at a crossroads where the path behind you is filled with echoes, and the path ahead is filled with silence. And in that silence, you hear something you haven't heard in a long time, your own voice. Your voice tells you that you matter, that your heart deserves gentleness, that your dreams deserve space, that your peace deserves priority, that your life cannot remain paused while you wait for someone else to decide your worth. And in hearing that voice, you begin to realize that letting go is not abandoning what you loved. It is returning to what you forgot yourself. Self-love is not always soft. Sometimes it is the hardest, sharpest truth you will ever face. Sometimes it is choosing discomfort over familiarity. Sometimes it is breaking your own heart to protect your soul. Sometimes it is walking away from what you wanted most because it began demanding pieces of you that you could no longer afford to give. Self-love in its truest form asks for courage. The courage to stop rewriting stories that don't honor you. The courage to step out of roles you have outgrown. The courage to release people who keep leaving you empty. The courage to trust that life holds more for you than the pain you're holding on to. Letting go also requires faith, faith in the unseen, faith in the unknown, faith in the possibility that what comes next might be kinder than what you're leaving behind. You do not always know where the path will lead when you choose release. You do not always know what will fill the spaces left behind. The fear of emptiness often keeps people clinging to what hurts them. But emptiness is not punishment. It is space. It is potential. It is the pause before transformation. It is the clearing of the ground before new seeds can take root. And though it feels frightening, it also feels honest. For the first time in a long time, your hands are free. Letting go means recognizing that holding on is costing you too much, your joy, your peace, your identity, your time, your spirit. It means acknowledging that the future you imagine cannot grow in the soil of someone else's unwillingness. It means releasing the fantasy in order to honor the reality. It means choosing truth over attachment, And truth, though sharp, is liberating. It cuts away illusions that kept you stuck. It strips away excuses you wrapped around your pain. It reveals the places within you that are begging to be healed. Healing begins the moment you release what is no longer aligned with your evolution. Healing begins when you stop reaching backward. When you stop trying to resurrect what your soul has outgrown. When you stop apologizing for wanting more, needing more, deserving more. Healing begins when you stop shrinking yourself to fit inside relationships, roles, or expectations that were never designed to hold the fullness of who you are. Healing begins when you realize that letting go is not losing. It is freeing every part of you that was waiting to breathe again. Letting go does not erase the memory of what once mattered. It does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean the love disappears. It simply means you are no longer willing to sacrifice yourself for something that refuses to grow with you. It means you are choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, alignment over attachment. It means you are honoring your heart by no longer placing it in hands that cannot hold it. And this shift is not cold, it is sacred. It is the reclaiming of your emotional sovereignty. And every time you choose yourself in this way, you rise a little higher. You begin to notice how light your spirit feels without the weight of constant worry. You begin to see possibilities where there used to be barriers. You begin to notice the beauty in simple moments because they are no longer overshadowed by emotional storms. You begin to feel your worth in ways you once depended on others to validate. You begin to understand that love is not meant to imprison you. Love, at its purest, sets you free, not just from others, but from the parts of yourself that believed you didn't deserve more.